My name is Maya. I'm 32 years old, and I quit a $85,000 a year senior marketing manager job in Chicago to move back home and care for my dying mother. For 6 months, I lived in her house, managing her private chemo treatments, cooking bland meals, and watching her slip away slowly from stage 4 ovarian cancer. I cried into my pillow every night, feeling guilty that I hadn't come home sooner, that I hadn't appreciated her while she was alive. I gave up my career, my apartment, and my future, all because I believed her. If you've ever been told you were selfish for trying to live your own life, stay until the end of this story. Because I was wrong. She wasn't dying. She was performing. The truth only came out during her own celebration of life party in front of her pastor, 25 neighbors, and her entire family. It's easy to tell yourself the lies are small when they're about a missed dance or a late curfew. But what do you do when the lie is terminal? What do you do when the cost of believing your mother is your entire future? My mother, Linda, has always had a knack for timing. She saves her biggest performances for the moments that hurt me the most. She used a fainting spell to make me miss my senior prom. She claimed a heart issue to stop me from moving after college. I learned to walk on eggshells, believing that if I just provided the right audience, she wouldn't need the drama. But cancer? Stage 4 cancer? That was the biggest weapon she owned. And she used it to force me to give up everything. When I told her I got the promotion in Chicago, she didn't clap. She got quiet, her breath catching in her chest. "You're going to leave me here to die alone, Maya. You're going to let your mother face chemo by herself." I was 31. I was successful. I had savings. I broke my lease. I packed up my life. I moved back into the suburban home I thought I'd escaped years ago. For 6 months, I was her nurse, her chauffeur, and her ATM. She charged me $2,000 a month for private treatments that she claimed were only available through a specialty clinic. I paid it. I rationalized it. I told myself that if it bought me one more day with her, it was worth it. Then I saw the bottle. It was the day before her celebration of life. She was in the shower, and I went to tidy her bedside table. There was an empty bottle of the chemo supplement and a full one sitting on the nightstand. I picked it up to throw the empty one away, and something looked off about the label. It was blurry. I should have believed my gut, but guilt is a heavy anchor. It keeps you tethered to toxicity. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just took the bottle downstairs, took a photo of the serial number, and pulled out my laptop. I did what I did best. Research. The revenge wasn't immediate. It was planned, documented, and then delivered perfectly in front of 25 people who thought they were there to mourn her. If you have ever been manipulated by someone claiming they were too sick, too weak, or too fragile to function without your sacrifice, you need to hear how I turned that lie into cold, hard cash and a ticket out of that house forever. Stay until the end to see the moment she laughed when I exposed her. Have you ever felt that crushing weight of guilt when a family member claimed they were sick and you didn't know whether to call an ambulance or call their bluff? If you've had to sacrifice your own success just to keep a toxic person alive and happy, comment below and let me know how long you held on. To understand why I believed a lie that seems so obvious in hindsight, you have to understand Linda. My mother doesn't just tell lies. She builds worlds. She constructs entire realities where she is the fragile, tragic heroine, and I am the supporting character whose only role is to catch her when she falls. It started long before the cancer. It started when I was 17. It was the night of my senior prom. I had bought a blue dress I saved up for by babysitting. I had a date, a sweet guy named David, who brought a corsage. I was downstairs, taking pictures, feeling beautiful and excited for the first time in forever. My mother was watching from the couch. She wasn't smiling. She was holding her chest. "You look nice," she whispered, her voice weak. "Have fun. Don't worry about me." "Are you okay, Mom?" I asked, my stomach tightening. I feel a little lightheaded. It's probably nothing. Just go." I hesitated, but David was waiting. We walked out the door, we got to the car, and then, through the front window, I saw her. She collapsed, just crumpled onto the living room rug. I screamed. I ran back inside. I called 911. The ambulance came. I spent my senior prom night in the waiting room of the ER in my blue dress, mascara running down my face, holding her hand. The doctors found nothing. Dehydration, they said. Stress. "I'm so sorry I ruined your night," she wept later. "I just love you so much, my heart couldn't take you leaving." At 17, I thought it was love. At 32, I know it was a leash. The pattern repeated every time I tried to step away. When I graduated college and got an offer for an internship in New York, she developed a heart arrhythmia that required me to stay local just for the summer. The summer turned into 3 years. When I tried to move in with a boyfriend, she had crippling migraines that meant she couldn't drive herself to the grocery store. I was conditioned. I was trained like a dog to respond to the sound of her pain. But last year, I thought I had finally broken free. I landed the job. Senior marketing manager at a tech firm in Chicago. The salary was $85,000, more money than anyone in my family had ever made. It was a career-defining role. It meant a new city, a new apartment, a new life. I called her to tell her the good news. I expected her to be happy, or at least to pretend. "Chicago," she said, her voice turning ice cold. "That's 4 hours away, Maya." "I know, Mom, but it's an amazing opportunity." "So you're just going to abandon me?" she snapped. "After everything I've done for you? You know my health is fragile." "Mom, you're 58, you're fine. I need to do this for me." "You have been diagnosed with terminal selfishness," she said. That was her phrase. Terminal selfishness. I hung up. I moved. I started the job. For 2 months, I was free. I had a view of Lake Michigan. I had coworkers who respected me. I had a life that didn't revolve around her pulse rate. Then came the call. It was a Tuesday night. I was working late on a presentation. "Maya?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I went to the doctor today." "Okay," I said, guarding my heart. "What is it now, migraine?" "No," she said. And then she started to cry. A deep, guttural sound. "It's ovarian cancer, baby. Stage 4. It's bad." The world stopped. The guilt hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Terminal selfishness. I had left her and the stress had killed her. That's what I thought. I had caused this. "I'm coming home," I said. "No," she sobbed. "Keep your fancy job. I'll die alone. I don't want to be a burden." "I'm coming home," I repeated. And I did. I dismantled my life in 48 hours. I quit the job. My boss tried to offer me a leave of absence, but I said no. "She needs full-time care," I told him. "I can't focus on work." I broke my lease, paid the penalty fee, packed my car, and drove 4 hours back to the house I swore I'd never live in again. When I got there, she looked okay. She wasn't thin. She wasn't pale. "It's early stages," she told me. "The doctor says the decline will happen fast if we don't start the aggressive treatment." "What treatment?" I asked. "There's a private clinic," she said, her eyes wide and earnest. "Insurance won't cover it because it's experimental. But Dr. Evans says it's my only chance. It's expensive, Maya." "How much?" $2,000 a month for the pills." "I'll pay it," I said. "I have savings." So began the 6 months of hell. I became her nurse, her maid, and her ATM. Every morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to make her a green smoothie. Every afternoon, I cleaned the house so she wouldn't be exposed to germs. Every evening, I gave her the chemo pills. She kept them in a locked box in her room. She would bring out the bottle, take 2 with dramatic grimaces, and then lie down on the couch, moaning about the nausea. "Oh, it burns," she would whisper, clutching her stomach. "It feels like fire inside me, but that means it's working, right?" "Right, Mom," I would say, rubbing her back. "It's killing the cancer." I paid her the $2,000 in cash every month. She said the clinic didn't take checks. I didn't question it. I was burning through my 401k, my emergency fund, everything I had built. But what is money compared to your mother's life? For 6 months, I watched her. And sometimes, late at night, a tiny voice in my head would whisper, "Why isn't she losing hair? Why does she gain weight? Why does she only have bad days?" when I try to leave the house to get coffee. But I crushed that voice. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was being terminally selfish again, until the day she got careless. She had gone to the bathroom and left the medicine cabinet unlocked. I went in to get some ibuprofen for my own headache. Stress headaches were my constant companion now. And there it was, the bottle. It was sitting on the top shelf, pushed behind a box of cotton balls. It didn't look like a medical bottle. The label looked homemade. The font was slightly crooked. I reached up and took it down. It felt light. I turned it over in my hand. "Serial number 492EXJ Prop." I frowned. "Prop?" I took out my phone. My hands were shaking, but I didn't know why yet. I opened Google. I typed in the serial number. The first result wasn't a pharmacy. It wasn't a clinic. It was Amazon. Movie prop pills, realistic sugar placebos, bottle of 100, $14.99. I stared at the screen. I stared at the bottle. I opened the cap and poured a pill into my hand. I tasted it. Sugar, pure, sweet, granulated sugar. I stood there in the bathroom, staring at my own reflection in the mirror, the reflection of a woman who had quit her career, who had spent $12,000, who had cried herself to sleep worrying about being an orphan. I didn't cry. I felt something inside me snap. It was the sound of the leash breaking. "Maya," her voice called from the living room. "I need my water. I feel a spell coming on." I looked at the sugar pill in my hand. I crushed it between my fingers. "Coming, Mom," I called back. My voice was steady. "I'm coming." I didn't confront her that afternoon. Confronting Linda without evidence is like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. She would have spun it. She would have said, "Oh, those are just my supplements. You found the wrong bottle." She would have cried. She would have had a heart attack right there on the rug to make me feel like a monster for doubting her. No, if I was going to take her down, I needed to be undeniable. I walked back into the living room with her water. She was lying on the couch with a wet washcloth over her eyes. "Thank you, baby," she whispered weakly. "The pain is bad today. I think I need my pill early." I watched her take the sugar pill. I watched her wince as she swallowed it. I watched the performance of a lifetime. "You're so brave, Mom," I said. It was the first lie I told her that day. It wouldn't be the last. That night, after she went to sleep, a miraculous recovery after her 8 Seeing West PM TV shows, I went to work. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I didn't open a nursing log. I opened a new document. I named it Case File Linda. Step 1, the pills. I had already found the Amazon listing. I took screenshots. I downloaded the invoice from her email account. She never logged out of the family computer. There it was. Order date, June 12th. Total, $14.99. I printed it. Step 2, the doctor. Dr. Evans. She had shown me letters from him, updates on her white blood cell counts and tumor markers. They were always printed on thick paper with a logo at the top. Evans Oncology Center. I went into her medical file. A messy drawer in the hallway desk she thought I respected too much to dig through. I pulled out the letters. I looked at the logo closely. It looked familiar. I did a reverse image search on Google. It wasn't a clinic logo. It was a stock image. Medical Caduceus Vector, free download. I searched for Dr. Evans Oncology in our state. There was no Dr. Evans. There was a Dr. Evans, a podiatrist, 2 counties over, but no oncologist. I scanned the letters. I noticed something else. The font. It was Times New Roman, but the spacing was weird. And at the bottom, there was a tiny smudge of ink, the same smudge our old inkjet printer made on every single page it printed. She had typed these herself, on the computer in the den. While I was at the grocery store buying her kale, I took photos of the letters. I took a photo of the printer test page showing the matching smudge. I dragged them into the folder. Step 3, the money. I logged into my bank account. I pulled up the withdrawals. June, $2,000. July, $2,000. August, $2,000. Total, $12,000. $12,000 for sugar. $12,000 stolen from a daughter who had already given up an $85,000 salary. I stared at the numbers. My hands started to shake. This wasn't just lying. This was theft. This was fraud. But I needed one more thing. I needed to prove she wasn't sick. The papers proved she was lying about the treatment, but she could still claim she was sick and just confused, or that she was buying alternative medicine because she was desperate. I needed to show the world that her body was fine. The next morning, opportunity knocked. I told her I was going to the pharmacy to pick up her supplements. "Take your time," she said, lying in bed, acting too weak to lift her head. "I'm just going to sleep." I walked out the front door. I closed it loudly. I started my car. I drove down the street. Then I parked around the corner. I walked back through the neighbor's yard. I crept up to the back window of the living room. It was open a crack to let in the breeze. I peeked through the blinds. The woman who couldn't lift her head 10 minutes ago was not in bed. She was in the kitchen. The radio was on. An upbeat pop song was playing. My mother was making a steak sandwich, and she was dancing. Not just swaying. She was doing a full hip shake, shimmying across the linoleum, using the spatula as a microphone. She looked vibrant. She looked energetic. She looked healthier than I had felt in 6 months. I pulled out my phone. I hit record. I filmed her eating the steak with gusto, the same woman who claimed she could only stomach broth. I filmed her laughing at something the DJ said. I filmed her doing a little jump spin move that would have been impossible for a woman with stage 4 cancer and crippling bone pain. I filmed for 3 minutes. Then I stopped. I saved the video. I named it The Miracle Cure. I walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and just breathed. For 6 months, I had been drowning in guilt. I had been mourning my mother while she was still alive. I looked at the phone, the video, the receipts, the fake letters. I wasn't a nurse anymore. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a prosecutor preparing for trial. And I knew exactly when the trial would be. 2 weeks from now. She had been planning it for a month. A celebration of life party. I want to celebrate while I'm still here, she had told me, weeping. I want to invite everyone. The pastor, my sisters, the neighbors. I want to say goodbye properly. She wanted an audience. Fine. I would give her a show she would never forget. I had the evidence. Now I needed a strategy. My instinct was to explode, to burst into the house, throw the sugar pills at her and scream until the windows rattled. But I knew Linda. If I screamed, she would cry. If I accused her, she would faint. She would turn herself into the victim of an unstable, abusive daughter. No, I needed witnesses. I needed the kind of public exposure that burns the lies away like fog in the sun, and I needed to make sure I got my money back. The next day, I drove into the city, claiming I had a dentist appointment. I didn't go to a dentist. I went to a small law office I'd found online. I sat across from a lawyer named Mrs. Thompson. She looked tired but kind. I laid it all out, the pills, the money, the lost job, the fake doctor. She listened in silence. When I finished, she took off her glasses. Maya, she said, her voice serious. I need you to understand something. What your mother is doing isn't just bad parenting. It isn't just lying. It has a legal name. What is it? I asked. It's fraud, she said. Specifically, theft by deception. Taking $12,000 from you for fake medical treatments is a crime. You can sue her. You can win. I don't want to send my mother to jail, I said quietly. You don't have to pursue criminal charges if you don't want to, Mrs. Thompson said. But you can take her to small claims court for the money, and you should. That money represents your labor, your time, and your trust. It wasn't a gift. It was a transaction based on a lie. She handed me a card. Keep your evidence. Keep the receipts. Keep the recording. Don't let her delete anything. I walked out of that office feeling lighter. It wasn't just drama anymore. It was a case. The next 2 weeks were the longest acting performance of my life. I had to go back to that house. I had to continue the charade. Here's your pill, Mom, I'd say, handing her the sugar. Oh, thank you, sweetie, she'd moan. I feel so weak today. I know, Mom, you're fighting so hard. Every time she lied, I added it to the mental file. Every time she made me fetch her water while she lay on the couch, perfectly capable of walking. I imagined the party. I started preparing the gifts. Linda loves party favors. For her celebration of life, she wanted little bags of lavender for everyone. So they can remember my scent, she had said, wiping away a tear. I decided to add something to the bags. I went to the library to print. I made 25 copies of a packet. Page 1, the Amazon receipt for movie prop sugar pills. Page 2, the fake Dr. Evans letter next to the medical vector stock image result. Page 3, a printout of my bank transfers labeled theft. I bought nice envelopes. I put the packets inside. I sealed them with a heart sticker. I hid them in the trunk of my car. The night before the party, she was giddy. That's the only word for it. She was trying to act somber, but you could see the excitement buzzing under her skin. She was going to be the center of attention. Everyone was going to tell her how brave she was. Everyone was going to cry over her. It was her Super Bowl. Maya, she said, grabbing my hand, make sure the pastor gets a good seat and make sure Aunt Sarah sits in the front. I want her to hear my speech. Don't worry, Mom, I said, squeezing her hand back. Everyone is going to hear your speech. And I have a special surprise for you, too. A surprise? Her eyes lit up. What is it? You'll see, I said. It's a tribute to everything you've done. She smiled, satisfied. She thought I meant a photo montage of us hugging. She had no idea I meant a forensic dismantling of her life. Could you have done it? Could you have lived in that house for 2 weeks, knowing the truth, serving her fake pills, and not saying a word? It sounds easy when you read it, but every day I wanted to scream. Every day I wanted to shake her. But I knew if I broke early, she would win. I had to wait for the audience. Would you have the patience to wait for the perfect moment, or would you have blown it up in the kitchen? Tell me in the comments. The morning of the party arrived. I put on a black dress. She put on a pale pink one and wrapped a headscarf around her head, even though she hadn't lost a single hair. Preemptive, she had told the neighbors. It's thinning so fast. I helped her set up the chairs in the living room. I set out the food. I placed the envelopes on the chairs. What are those? She asked, eyeing them. Just some memories, I said, for people to read later. Oh, that's sweet, she said. The doorbell rang. The pastor arrived, then her sisters, then the neighbors. 25 people filled the living room. The air was thick with sympathy. People were hugging her, whispering, "You're so strong, Linda. We're praying for you." I stood in the back, near the TV, my phone connected to the Bluetooth speaker. I felt my heart hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady. It was time. The living room smelled like lavender and lying. My mother sat in the big armchair in the center of the room, looking for all the world like a tragic queen on a throne. She had perfected the cancer slump, shoulders hunched, head tilted, eyes half closed as if keeping them open required immense effort. The guests were eating the catered sandwiches I had paid for. The pastor was holding her hand. My Aunt Sarah was weeping softly into a tissue. She's just fading away, I heard a neighbor whisper. Look at her. She's so frail. I looked at her. I saw the woman who had danced to the radio while eating a steak 3 days ago. I saw the woman who had stolen my savings. Attention, everyone, the pastor said, standing up. Linda would like to say a few words. The room went quiet. My mother slowly, dramatically pushed herself up from the chair. She held onto the armrest as if she might collapse at any moment. Thank you all for coming, she whispered. Her voice was breathy and weak. This journey, it has been so hard. There were days I wanted to give up. Days the pain was so bad I prayed for the Lord to take me. Aunt Sarah sobbed louder. But, she continued, looking directly at me with wet, shining eyes. I kept fighting. For my daughter, for Maya. She gave up her life in the big city to come home and take care of her dying mother. She is my angel. The room turned to look at me. 25 pairs of eyes filled with pity and admiration. You're a good daughter, Maya, someone said. And, my mother went on, gaining a little strength, I want you all to know that no matter what happens, I am at peace. I have fought the good fight. She paused for effect. She was waiting for applause. Instead, she got the sound of a spoon tapping against a glass. Clink, clink, clink. I stepped forward from the back of the room. That was beautiful, Mom, I said. My voice wasn't weak. It was clear. It cut through the humid air of the room like a knife. But before we finish, I have a gift for the guest of honor. My mother smiled uncertainly. Oh, Maya, you didn't have to. I really did, I said. Actually, everyone has one. Those envelopes on your chairs, go ahead. Open them. There was a rustling of paper. My mother frowned. She didn't have an envelope. What is this? Aunt Sarah asked, tearing hers open. It's the receipt for Mom's medication, I said calmly. I thought you should all know exactly what experimental treatment looks like. Aunt Sarah pulled out the first page. She squinted at it. Amazon, she read aloud. Movie prop sugar pills, 14s are 99. The room went very still. What? The pastor asked, looking at his own paper. What does this mean? It means, I said, looking directly at my mother, that for the last 6 months, Linda hasn't been taking chemotherapy. She's been taking sugar, and she's been charging me $2,000 a month for the privilege. My mother's face changed. The frail victim mask slipped, replaced by a sudden, sharp panic. Maya, she snapped, her voice suddenly strong. Don't be ridiculous. Those are just supplements. You don't understand medicine. I understand that Dr. Evans doesn't exist, I said. Turn the page. The room rustled again. That's a stock photo, my cousin said, pointing at the logo. It has the watermark on it. Linda, Aunt Sarah said, her voice shaking, is this true? No, my mother cried. She tried to muster tears, but the fear in her eyes was too real. Maya is confused. She's under so much stress. She's trying to hurt me because she's jealous of the attention. Jealous? I laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Mom, you claimed you couldn't walk to the bathroom yesterday. You said your bones felt like glass. They do, she shrieked. I am in agony right now. Really? I asked. Because this was you on Tuesday. I raised the remote control. I pointed it at the big TV mounted on the wall behind her. I pressed play. The video filled the screen. There was my mother, in the kitchen. The pop music blared through the speakers. And there she was, shimmying, shaking her hips, doing a spin, biting into a steak sandwich with the appetite of a linebacker. The silence in the room was absolute. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was a vacuum. It was the sound of 25 people having their reality ripped away. On the screen, my mother laughed and did a little kick. In the room, the real mother stood frozen. She wasn't slumping anymore. She was standing bolt upright, her hands clenched into fists. The video ended. The screen went black. Aunt Sarah stood up. Her face was red. "Linda?" My mother looked around the room. She saw the shock. She saw the disgust. She saw the pastor slowly putting the envelope down on the table like it was contaminated. She realized the act was over. There was no recovering this. There was no fainting her way out of a video of her dancing. And then her face changed again. The panic vanished. The sick woman vanished. She smiled. It was a terrifying, triumphant smile. "Well," she said, shrugging her shoulders. "It worked, didn't it?" The room gasped. "What?" I whispered. "It worked," she repeated, looking me right in the eye. "You came home. You quit that stupid job. You paid attention to me. You finally noticed me for once." You stole $12,000 from me," I said, my voice shaking now. "You made me think you were dying, and you were a better daughter for it," she yelled. "You were here. You were cooking for me. You were holding my hand. Who cares how we got there? We were a family again." "That's not family," Aunt Sarah said. Her voice was low and dangerous. "That is sick, Linda. That is truly sick." "Oh, shut up, Sarah," my mother snapped. "You're just jealous because your kids never visit." The pastor stood up. "Linda," he said, his voice trembling, I think we should go." "Fine, go!" My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Leave! Abandon a sick woman! See if I care!" People started moving. They didn't say goodbye. They just grabbed their coats and walked out. They left the envelopes on the floor. They left the half-eaten sandwiches. They looked at me as they passed. "I'm so sorry, Maya," the neighbor said. "Call me if you need anything," my cousin whispered. Within 2 minutes, the room was empty. Just me and her and the silence. She sat back down in her throne. She crossed her arms. She didn't look ashamed. She looked annoyed that her party had been ruined. "Well," she said, "I hope you're happy. You embarrassed me in front of the pastor." I looked at her. I looked at the woman I had grieved for, the woman I had sacrificed my career for. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It was nothing. It was the complete and total absence of obligation. "I'm leaving, Mom," I said. "You can't," she scoffed. "You broke your lease. You have nowhere to go." "I have a hotel," I said. "And tomorrow I have a lawyer." "A lawyer?" she laughed. "For what? Being a bad daughter?" "For fraud," I said. "For the $12,000 and for the emotional distress." "You wouldn't dare," she sneered. "I'm your mother." "No," I said, picking up my purse. "You're not a mother. You're a vampire, and I'm done bleeding." I walked to the door. "Maya!" she screamed. "Maya! I feel a spell coming on. My heart. Maya, come back. I'm really sick this time. Maya!" I didn't turn around. I didn't slow down. I walked out the front door and closed it. I heard the lock click. It was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. The next week was surreal. After the party, my mother didn't call me. She didn't text. She didn't try to guilt me into coming over to help her with anything. She posted a long, bitter status on Facebook. Abandoned by my only daughter. Betrayed by my own family. Alone at Christmas. Family. Heartbreak. I didn't reply. I didn't even like it. Instead, I spent my days preparing for small claims court. The morning of the hearing, I wore the same black dress I wore to the party. I took the folder with the evidence, the bank statements, and the printed video stills. I sat in the waiting room with Mrs. Thompson, the lawyer who had helped me file. When my mother was called in, she looked tired, but she still managed to wear a dress and a little bit of makeup. She carried herself like she was the victim of a hate crime. The judge asked her if she had anything to say. She began to cry. She told the whole room about how hard she had fought, how brave she was, how her daughter had abandoned her in her final days. Mrs. Thompson handed the judge the packet. "I have here the Amazon receipt for the pills." bank records for the withdrawals, and video evidence showing the defendant in good health and dancing, contrary to claims of severe illness. The judge leafed through the pages. He watched the video clip I'd burned onto a CD. He looked at my mother. "Ms. Evans," he said, "can you explain these documents?" She stammered. They're not real treatments, but they're supportive. I needed her to be with me. "Fraud is fraud," the judge said. "You took $12,000 under false pretenses. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff." He ordered her to pay the full amount, plus court fees. She didn't have the money. Her credit cards were maxed out. Her savings were gone. The only thing of value she had left was her car, a sedan she had bragged about for years. 2 weeks later, I saw it for sale on Craigslist. "Beautiful, low miles, must sell fast," the ad read. I called the buyer just to confirm. "Is this Linda's car?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "She said she's in a bad place, needed cash quick." I didn't buy it. I didn't want it. But I told the lawyer, and we took a screenshot of the ad, another piece of the puzzle. The fallout was immediate and total. The church banned her from all group activities. The pastor wouldn't even return her calls. Her sisters stopped visiting. They said they were too busy. They changed their numbers. Neighbors stopped coming by. The only people who still checked in were relatives from out of state who didn't know the full story. At family gatherings, when someone asked where Mom was, Aunt Sarah just shrugged and changed the subject. At Thanksgiving, there were 20 people at the buffet. No one mentioned her name. She tried to fight back. She posted angry messages on Facebook about toxic daughters and ungrateful brats. She sent me a message the day after the court ruling. "Maya, you will regret this. I gave you life, I raised you, now you're giving me energy cancer." Energy cancer? I almost laughed out loud. She had invented a new disease just for me. I blocked her. I didn't respond. I didn't react. I was in London now. I had gotten a job with a digital marketing agency. My boss liked my experience and my calm under pressure. My new coworkers didn't know my mother's name. My apartment overlooked the Thames. I could see Big Ben from my window. I went to yoga class. I made friends. I built a life that didn't include guilt or fear. I sometimes still felt the old tug, the one that said, "Check your phone, make sure she's okay." But now I recognized it for what it was. A reflex, not a need. I had set a boundary. I had enforced it. And I was alive on the other side. But sometimes I wondered, was $12,000 enough? Was public shaming enough? Did I go too far? Or was it just enough? I think about those questions sometimes. But I don't feel guilty about it anymore. Because the truth is, you can't fix a broken system with more sacrifice. Sometimes you have to break the system to stop the bleeding. What do you think? Was Maya right to expose her mother publicly? Was $12,000 enough compensation? Did she go too far? Let me know in the comments. If you have a story like this, about a parent who lied, about guilt used as a weapon, share it below. You're not alone. And if you're wondering if you're the bad daughter for setting boundaries, you're not. You're free. These days, my life sounds different. I don't wake up to the sound of a fake cough or a demand for water. I wake up to the sound of rain against the window pane of my flat in Kensington. I smell Earl Grey tea brewing. Not the sterile scent of rubbing alcohol and fear. I have a job I love. I have friends who don't know my mother's name. I have a passport full of stamps. But the biggest change isn't where I live, it's how I live. Before, I was a prisoner of potential grief. I lived my life in a constant state of pre-mourning, terrified that every phone call was the call. I made decisions based on guilt, not desire. I shrunk myself to fit into her drama. Now I am expansive, I take up space, I say no without explaining myself. Before, I thought being a good daughter meant setting myself on fire to keep her warm. Now I know that being a good person means protecting my own flame. Does it still hurt? Sometimes. Some nights, when it's quiet, my thumb hovers over her contact in my phone. I wonder if she really is sick this time. I wonder if she's lonely. I wonder if she's eating soup alone in that dark house. The old instinct, the nurse, the fixer, the daughter, tries to claw its way up my throat. Just check on her, just one text. But then I remember the taste of sugar on my tongue. I remember the video of her dancing while I cried over her bills. I remember the look on her face when she said, "It worked." And I put the phone down. I learned a hard lesson, but it's one I want you to keep. Family is not a suicide pact. Sharing DNA does not obligate you to share your sanity. If someone has to destroy you to feel loved, that isn't love. It's consumption. My mother wanted a nurse. She wanted an audience. She wanted a victim. Instead, she got a prosecutor. And now she has exactly what she claimed she was terrified of. She is alone. I blocked her number on the day I flew out. I blocked the email. I left the family group chat. I closed the door on the house, on the lies, and on the guilt. I heard the lock click, that small final sound. And for the first time in 32 years, on the other side of that door, I finally started to breathe. If you are currently trapped in a cycle of guilt with a toxic parent, please listen to me. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to be terminally selfish if it means you survive. Share your story in the comments. This is a safe space. And if you want more stories about people breaking free from toxic family expectations, hit that subscribe button. Because we are breaking cycles here, one sugar pill at a time.